Hi, everybody. My name is Mike Rivera, and I'll be hosting today's webinar on applying for SBA Loans 101. Specifically, I'll be focusing on two new loan programs that were part of the recent CARES Act stimulus package that Congress passed on March 27th. Those two programs are the Economic Injury Disaster Loan, I'll be referring to as EIDL, and the Paycheck Protection Program, which I'll be referring to as PPP. This webinar is put on by the Premier Academy 360. And so if you're looking for additional information as well as a couple of attachments that we'll be including with this webinar, please go to the learnacademy360.com website. Furthermore, I'd like to thank VSP on behalf of their network doctors and staff for encouraging this webinar and for putting this on in an effort to be helpful to network doctors and staff. So if you're looking to better understand what the $2 trillion CARES Act that just passed Congress and signed by the president means to you, that's what we'll be covering today. I'm going to be answering some common questions that we've gotten from customers and also provide clear next steps on how to process your applications for these loans. So a couple of disclosures before we get started. I was asked yesterday if I was a subject matter expert on the CARES Act and SBA financing. And my answer to that was no. I don't believe that there is a subject matter expert on this program because it was just launched and signed into law on March 27th. Furthermore, the SBA just launched the PPP portion this last Friday, April 3rd. So it's a very, very new program. Our bank, as well as others, have been working feverishly 12, 16-hour days, worked all through the weekend in order to implement the program, mobilize our staffing to process all of these requests, and to, frankly, to take care of our customers. We launched the program at 4:55 p.m. on Saturday evening, this last Saturday. Within 24 hours, we had 7,000 applicants. Within 48 hours, we had 15,000 applicants. So on average, we've been getting about 300 applicants an hour. This webinar is recorded as of April 8th. That's important to mention because SBA has provided new guidance on this program as recently as yesterday, and so we anticipate further changes. I would encourage you, anything that's shared on here, to please also fact check with the SBA and or with your trusted advisors, such as your CPA and attorney. Lastly, I will say just a little bit about my background. I've been in banking for 18 years. That entire time, I have either serviced, originated, or underwritten SBA loans along with other business and commercial loans. And so this SBA as a whole and the programs that they offer are very, very familiar to me. So what programs are available to providers today? Well, the first one is the Economic Injury Disaster Loan. That's the EIDL. That provides up to $10,000 per borrower that does not necessarily need to be repaid. As long as certain conditions are met, that money would be given to the borrower as either a grant or forgivable debt. Funds for this from the time you apply are supposed to be in your account within 3 days. And for this program, you will be applying directly with the SBA. There's a link further on in this webinar that we'll be sharing, and we'd really encourage you to apply for that. The second program that's available to businesses today that we'll be going over is the Paycheck Protection Program, the PPP. That's up to $10 million per borrower, and it's partially forgiven as long as certain conditions are met. The loan amount for the PPP is based upon your average monthly payroll cost for 2019. So what we're doing is we will look at your total payroll for 2019, and we'll divide it by 12, and that's your average monthly payroll cost. Multiply that by 2.5 times, and that's what the maximum loan amount is. We'll be going over what really is included in payroll cost here in the webinar today as well. Funding on that, we don't have a clear turn time. Again, we've been processing these since Saturday when we launched our portal, and so we're still working through how the funding would be. I'm guessing what we're expecting to see is 1 to 2 weeks from the time of processing. Lastly, whereas with the EIDL, you apply with the SBA, the Paycheck Protection Program, you want to apply directly with your bank. And first and foremost, I would go back to the bank that you have a deposit account with, checking account, and or loan, and ideally that you had that as of February 15th of 2020. Also, there are other programs available as it relates to the COVID-19 shutdown and disaster relief. And so I would encourage you to do your research, talk to your trusted advisors, Google it. There are other things out there that I'm less familiar with. Specifically today, I'll be focusing on these two programs, the EIDL and the PPP. So a little bit more about the EIDL program. This is $10,000 to qualifying businesses with up to 10,000 qualifying businesses with less than 500 employees. These funds do not need to be repaid as long as certain conditions are met. This program is very fast, very easy to apply, and there's no reason for you not to apply this program, in my opinion. The Paycheck Protection Program. This program authorizes, of that $2 trillion CARES Act that just passed, $349 billion of it is allocated to forgivable loans to small businesses to pay their employees during the COVID-19 crisis. And so, at first you look at this and you say, gosh, free money, it sounds too good to be true. You have to step back for a second and think about it more broadly from the federal government's perspective. They can push funds towards unemployment to pay people to stay home and watch Netflix, or they can push funds through small businesses, which are the backbone of the U.S. economy, for those small businesses to continue to employ their staff and have productive people. So these loans are, the terms are set. They're set by the SBA, and it's the same for every borrower. Loan interest rate is 1%. Loan maturity is 2 years. And for funds which are not forgiven, for those that don't qualify for forgiveness, which we'll be going through that, the payments can be deferred for 6 months from the time of origination. So can you apply for both the EIDL and the PPP? Yes, absolutely. Please apply for both programs. The one caveat to that are that funds must be used for different expenses. For example, the PPP is primarily there to, just by the nature of its name, the Paycheck Protection Program. It's there to keep the U.S. economy churning by keeping people employed. And so that program is meant to be primarily for payroll costs, and then you can also use a portion of it for rent and utilities, et cetera. Whereas the EIDL, when you think about your other costs, you can use those funds for that. So does my business qualify? There's a lot of guidance from the SBA on this. We'll include some links to that guidance in the webinar. But the most important one is if you have less than 500 employees, in general, you will probably qualify for this program. So most, if not all, the providers that are listening to this qualify for the program. So where can I apply for this program? Well, with the EIDL, you will apply directly with the SBA at the link here. So covid19relief.sba.gov. For the PPP program, ideally you want to apply at the bank which you had an account as of 2/15 of 2020. Each bank, depending on the size of the bank, and many of them have an online portal to apply. Some of them you'll want to reach out to the bank directly, either your relationship manager or customer service. But what I find is an easy way is just Google your bank name along with COVID-19, and additional information will come up. There is a list of participating banks through the SBA website, which I've included here as well. So how long does it take to apply? Well, I can tell you the economic injury disaster loan takes 10 to 15 minutes to do online. It's pretty quick. The last questions that you'll have for that loan will be your account number and your routing number, and that's so the SBA has somewhere to send that $10,000 advance, within 3 days following the application. For the Paycheck Protection Program, that's going to take 15 to 30 minutes online for the initial application, and then expect follow-up emails from your bank as it relates to additional information that they may need for that program, which we'll be going through in a second. With the Paycheck Protection Program, I will mention that these are taking a couple of days to process, and there's nowhere that you can check the status of your application from the banks, and that's primarily because all of the banks have mobilized staff, hundreds of people, to process these things, and they've mobilized them all within a couple of days. And so, the banks do not have the infrastructure for and the customer service to be able to respond to many of the questions that come in, and also to provide constant real-time updates on these programs. But I can tell you, for all the banks that I've spoken to, and then obviously intimately I'm familiar with our own, we've got staff working around the clock, 12 to 16-hour days, working all through the weekends to make sure that we're taking care of our customers and we're doing our part to continue to support the U.S. economy through the COVID-19 shutdown. So what information should you have ready when you're applying for these loans? Well, with the EIDL, you want to have your business entity information, so name, EIN, or tax ID, your formation date, as well as bank account and routing number. This is where the funds will get credited to. And then just totals of 2019 revenues and expenses. There's a couple of other items that they'll be asking, as well as some qualifying questions, but the core items, and sometimes the things that people don't have in front of them when they apply, that's what this is really meant to cover, making sure that you have those things at your fingertips as you're applying online through the SBA. For the PPP program, it's similar information. The other things I would have, though, are your 2019 payroll costs, including your Form 940s, and then any other payroll cost supporting documents. We're going to be going through that in a little bit more detail in a moment. So how much of the PPP loan program is forgiven? Well, there's some guidance from the SBA on that. Essentially, it's an 8-week period of forgiveness for the amounts that were used of your loan that were used to cover payroll costs, mortgage interest, rent for the building that you occupy, and utilities. Now, in order to receive this forgiveness, employee and compensation levels must be maintained. So number of employees, as well as how much you're paying them, those are some of the things that will be factored into the amount of the loan that's forgiven. Additional note is that payroll costs are capped at $100,000 per employee. So if you have an employee that their payroll cost is more than that for 2019, when you're doing your calculations, you'll want to bring it down to that $100,000. Of this forgivable amount, 75% of that must be for payroll costs. So that's just a reminder that, again, this is going back to the main purpose of this program, payroll protection. It's really intended to ensure that people are still working during the shutdown. So I provided some additional information here on how to calculate total payroll costs. So your maximum loan amount is your average monthly payroll cost factored generally over 2019. If your business has been, is new and has been around for a shorter period, there is some other guidance as far as calculating that average payroll cost. It could be based off of January through February of 2020, I think is what it is. And then you'll multiply that by it says percent here. In fact, it's 2.5 times. So it should be 2.5 times. And then to that, you'll add if you had any funds, if you've received for the EIDL, you would add that here because that will be refinanced into this loan with the exception of the $10,000 advance. So down below here, you'll see for employers and corporations, there's a list of items that you can include in your total payroll cost. And then down below that, there are a list of items for sole proprietors and independent contractors and self-employed individuals, items that they can include calculating their total payroll cost. How do I calculate my maximum loan amount for the Paycheck Protection Program? Well, I included some guidance here that reflects this. And so you'll notice that salaries, wages, commissions, etc. So number one is a number that should come right off of your IRS Form 940 if you file that form. If you do not, the bank is going to be looking for something to verify what those payroll costs were. Most of the time, you can get that from your payroll company. Most of the major payroll companies, if you're using one, now are providing CARES Act packages to make that information easily available to business owners. And the rest of these items, I think we've covered for the most part, but I wanted to show this to you in this format. I think it's a little easier to absorb. So this is the Paycheck Protection Program application. It's probably really small and hard to read. We do have an attachment of this application on the Learn Academy 360 website as well, but wanted to provide this just to show where you're going to be inputting that average monthly payroll and where you're going to be doing that 2.5 times factor to come up with your total maximum loan amount. You'll notice down below there are a few questions here, yes, no questions. Those have to do with eligibility, and so making sure that you're answering those questions to ensure that in fact you are eligible for the program. So what documents are required for the PPP? If you're filing a tax form 940, the bank will want to see that form 940 for 2019 year end. Additionally, there's the Program application, which is the one that I just shared, and also that's attached to Learn Academy 360. Lastly, there's a 941 payroll processing record for through February 15th that your bank would ask for, and the bank that's not on here would want to see some additional supporting information if you're including other expenses such as employee health benefits and paid time off, etc. So there's a few other lists here as it relates to sole proprietors or self-employed and other businesses. Common question is, where can you get your tax form 940 from? Generally, you can get that from your payroll provider and or your CPA. If you don't have that form or unable to locate it, I would look for any other information that you have that you can supply the bank to verify your 2019 payroll costs, because that's what the bank is going to use in order to verify maximum loan amount. And I've highlighted the field here, total payments to all employees, to reflect what number you're looking to use for the payroll cost. Other online resources, you can go to SBA.gov. You can also go to Treasury's website, which is home.treasury.gov. Both of them will have a link for COVID-19 relief, and they've got a ton of information there. The intent here was not to cover everything, but to give you an overview of the program and hopefully give you enough information so that you can process your applications if you have not already. So key takeaways. I would immediately apply for both the EIDL and the PPP. I wouldn't wait for tomorrow. I wouldn't wait for next week. I would do it today. I would do it now. And the reason that I'm saying this is because, as I mentioned earlier, we're still getting in 300 applications an hour, and that's just one bank. We had 15,000 applications within our first 48 hours of launching, and we launched on a Saturday evening. So I think all of the banks are experiencing the same thing. There's a ton of requests for this, and it is expected. I'm expecting that we will exceed that as a country. We'll exceed the 349 billion allocated for this program within the first 1 to 2 weeks. Prior to this program launching last Friday, I was guessing it would be 2 to 4 weeks, and I've just been surprised at how many requests have come in for this. So I wouldn't wait until next week. I wouldn't wait until tomorrow. I would get your applications for both programs in today. Very, very important. And the other thing, key takeaway, is for the PPP program, because whereas the EIDL is something you apply at the SBA online, the PPP you're going to apply with your current bank, and depending on that bank, they may have an online platform, they may not. But ideally, you would apply with your current bank because they will have already cleared your know your customer compliance information. It'll be the easiest for them to do it, and frankly, most of the banks, including ours, are prioritizing customers first. So right now, we're only processing applications for customers who had an account with us as of February 15th of 2020. And so if for some reason your bank is not providing this program, there are a few other banks that do provide it to non-customers. I expect you'll see us and many others open up to that at some point here in the near future, once we've sort of stabilized, gotten all of the huge influx of requests processed from our existing customers. And then again, I've included the link one more time for the EIDL program on where to apply. So that's really it. I hope this is helpful. I hope the takeaway that you took from this is that you probably, as a network provider, you probably qualify for these programs, and it would be in your interest to apply, and to apply very quickly so as not to miss out, because there is a finite amount of money allocated by Congress for these programs. And if it's anything like the stimulus package from 2009, so over 10 years ago, that program ran out of money multiple times and Congress had to replenish it. We're expecting something similar here. Actually, we're expecting this one to run out of money even faster because of the forgivable debt portion of the program. So thank you for your time. Thank you, VSP, for hosting this for your network providers and staff. I hope this was helpful to everybody, and have a wonderful day.